Hello, everybody. If you're joining us, I'm just waiting for people to join us in the lobby, and we should start shortly. So just bear with me 20 seconds to a minute, 20 seconds to 30 seconds, and we get this going. So just bear with me a sec. Right. Okay. Looks like most people are in. So I'll make a start now anyway. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about the Spanish Golden Visa. Very hot topic at the moment, as I'm sure you're aware, and while everyone's here. There was a lot of changes with Portugal Golden Visa last year, which has really sort of turned people's eyes onto Spain. So traditionally, last year, the Portugal Golden Visa was the route that a lot of people would take in order to get their EU residency. And the reason for that was Portugal had a very low entry point. So for as little as 280,000, you can invest into property in Portugal. And in return, you'd be given a golden visa, which ultimately you could then change to a passport. So it was a very low entry point for Portugal. You could then convert it to a passport after 5 years. So it became a very popular route. However, at the beginning of last year, the Portuguese authority announced that they would essentially change the golden visa program to remove property as an option. So that became less appealing. You now can't invest in property in Portugal in order to get your golden visa. There are other ways you can do it in Portugal. You can do it via an investment fund. You can do it via investing into a business, government bonds. But property you can't do. And property was always the way that a lot of people like to do it because it's a good investment. So people are kind of looking now towards Spain. The other thing with Portugal had NHR, which was a preferential tax regime. So for the first 10 years of living in Portugal, you could get very preferential tax treatment. However, that was also withdrawn towards the end of last year for Portugal. So it's kind of made Portugal seem a less popular route to residency in the EU. And because of that, people are looking, well, what are the best alternatives? Now, there are lots of different alternatives in the EU in terms of getting a golden visa, but we're finding a massive increase in the Spanish golden visa. And there are a number of reasons for that, which I'll go into during this sort of the next hour, really, and just explain why that is. But as a company, we've had so many inquiries in the last sort of 6-7 weeks in terms of people looking to do the Spanish golden visa, and it become apparent as to why that is as we sort of progress. So anyway, I'll sort of give you a little bit of a background and agenda on the next slide. But just to introduce myself, my name's Sam Daines. I'm a senior wealth manager here at Holborn Assets. You can see there down at the bottom, you've got my telephone number and WhatsApp number. So please make a note of that. It's a UK number. I am actually based here in Spain. I've got a UK number there. So please make a note of that. You've also got my email address there, which is sam.daines@holbornassets.com. Please also make a note of that because you will have questions. We will send you a copy of this webinar at the end. So in case you have to leave early or you miss bits, we'll send you out a copy of the webinar in the next few days. So don't worry if you are going to miss bits. But make a note of the number, make a note of my email. I've also put a QR code on the front screen here, which is a sort of attempt to move with technology. But theoretically, you can scan that QR code with your phone, and that will book you into my diary, and we can do it's a free consultation we offer. So if you've got a personal situation, you want to talk about how you can go about with the Spanish Golden Visa, then you can book yourself in my diary using that QR code. But I will say the QR code is linked to Calendly. Calendly will only have certain available spaces, and I appreciate a lot of people watching this. I know her from Australia, I know her from America and various other countries. So if you want different timed appointments, I can always do that. So drop me an email, drop me a WhatsApp, and we can obviously book that in. You also find me on YouTube. I've done various other videos on the Spanish Golden Visa. So again, I'll send you some links for that when we send out the video. So that's the QR code. You've got my number, you've got my email address. Make a note of all of that. And as I say, if you want a free consultation, it really is free, but I can talk about your personal situation, then we can organize that. So with no further ado, let's move on to the first slide. And this really is just an agenda of what we're going to talk about today. Now, I know some parts of this you might not be as interested in as others, but I think it's important to sort of follow the structure. So first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about Holborn and Holborn Pass. So Holborn Assets are the company I work for. And as part of that company, we have Holborn Pass. Now, Holborn Pass, which we'll come on to, are the arm of essentially what we do, which deals with the Golden Visa program specifically. And we don't just do Spain, we do all the different Golden Visa programs. We just do Portugal, we've still got interest there. We do Greece, we do Malta, we do non-European Golden Visas for America, Dubai, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, etc. So we do all the Golden Visa programs, but I'm based here in Spain, so I specialize in the Spanish Golden Visa. I'll talk a little bit about residency by investment and what that means. So you've obviously heard about residency by investment. That's essentially what a Golden Visa program is, whether that's in Spain or wherever. That's what a residency by investment program is. But you also get citizenship, and citizenship is slightly different to residency, which we'll talk about. We'll go into a little bit of detail of the Spanish Golden Visa program, tell you a little bit about that, specifically how that works, what the process and the benefits of the Spanish Golden Visa programs are. I'll also give you some examples of real estate options that will qualify for the Golden Visa. And hopefully that will give you an idea of what you would need to do. And then we can go through some questions and answers. I can see somebody's raised their hand. What I'll do is I'll address the questions at the end. I've got a list of questions to go through that people have sent in prior to this. So I'll do my best to get through them. Obviously, if you've got any questions I don't have a chance to get around and ask, please do drop me an email. I'll put it on the last page as well, so you can get my email and my phone number and ask me, feel free to message me and ask me anything personal to yourselves. So that's what I'll go through today. So let's start off by talking a little bit about Holborn Assets, who we are and what we do. Okay, so at Holborn Assets, we're essentially a global wealth management firm. So we started back in 1998. So we've been going a good sort of 25, 26 years. We're a British family firm. So we've been going a long time. We've got over 500 employees positioned all around the world. And we've got over 20 international offices, including one here in Spain. So I'm based in our office down in Malaga. So I've lived over here for around sort of around 6 years now. So I'm based in our Spanish office, but we do have an office in Portugal. We've got an office in the UK, offices in Dubai, South Africa. So we position ourselves around the world. And the idea really of that was, as a wealth management firm, that we were able to provide advice to people, no matter on what country they move to. So we're fully regulated in whatever countries that our clients are in. So we have the appropriate regulation and we can advise clients. And if, for example, somebody moves from the USA and they move to Spain, we can provide financial advice on your assets when you're in Spain or when you're in America. So it kind of is just a way of us to be able to provide that financial advice. We've got around 25,000 clients now globally. A bit about myself, just a bit of background. I don't want to bore you to death, but I've been in financial services now about 23, 24 years. So I worked in the UK. I worked for HSBC, Nationwide Building Society in the UK, Wesleyan Assurance, so doing financial advice, doing mortgage advice. I've then moved on to doing residency by investment. So been around quite a long time in the industry. I moved over to Spain around 6 years ago. So I've gone through the whole process myself, and I'm essentially Holborn's expert, if you like, in the Spanish Golden Visa. As I say, the process here in Spain, if you live here, you do know how difficult things can be. Things are a little bit mañana, and you really need to know how to work the system here, which is what we're here to help. But what actually happened with Holborn Assets is around 6 years ago, we had so much interest in people looking for basically movement in the EU, not just the EU, but all around the world, but specifically the EU. There's a lot of restrictions in terms of, getting visas to travel, that sort of thing. So as a company, it was a decision really to combine using our wealth management experience and combining that with actually providing a residency by investment program. And what that allows us to do is really find the best investments for people looking for a golden visa in Spain or in any other country. So for us, it's the investment that's a priority for people. But obviously, as an offshoot of that, you will get the golden visa. So for anyone that's interested, it's a win-win situation. We provide at Holborn Pass, we provide the whole process. We get the golden visa for our clients. So anybody that is interested, we would do the whole process for them, right from finding a property to the legals, to the taxes, everything. We're a one-stop shop, which I'll come on to. We've done well over 1,000 applicants processed. A lot of them were for the Portugal Golden Visa last year. But before it was withdrawn, there was a huge influx of people kind of thinking, I want to go to Portugal before it was withdrawn. It was eventually withdrawn around September, October. That was the last we could get any through. We actually did the largest amount of golden visas in Portugal last year. There was such amount of interest for it. But as I say, now everybody's looking towards Spain. And we've got 100% success rate. So anybody looking to do the golden visa, every application we put through, we haven't had any that have been rejected. We know what they're looking for in terms of doing the paperwork and the applications, because as I say, you need to make sure you get things right. For example, if people are looking to tag on spouses, grandparents, etc., you need to make sure that you've got all the documents in place, which we do for our clients. And in our back office, we use Orients, and Orients have been around since the start of the golden visa in Spain, 2013. So they are one of the largest providers of the golden visa in Spain. So we partnered with them in our back office essentially to make sure that we have a really slick process for doing this for people. So we've won, as you can see on the right-hand side, we've won numerous industry awards. We've also got an excellent rating on Trustpilot as well. So people who are going to use it should feel very comfortable. So that's the background really of what's put me in front of you. So let's talk a little bit about what we do. And we will come on to the Spanish Golden Visa. It's just, again, to understand what we do as a company. Now, I won't read through all these points. But essentially, when you get the Spanish Golden Visa, you have to go for a long process. And if you're going to do it, the process, certainly when it comes around to property, is going to be finding a property. It's going to be doing the due diligence on that property. It's going to be appointing lawyers. It's going to be checking all the paperwork. It's going to be doing fingerprints. When you get the golden visa, you have to do biometrics and fingerprints. It's going to be filing tax returns, applying for the golden visa, renewing the golden visa, changing the golden visa to potentially a passport. So the idea of what we do at Holborn Pass is to do this whole process for our clients. So we will actually do all the due diligence on any properties that we look at. Now, the majority of real estate opportunities we look at for clients, which will become more apparent the more we go through this, is commercial opportunities. We do residential. Obviously, we search for residential for our clients. But when you look at, if you put your investment hat on, as we do at Holborn, then realistically, commercial property is a lot better unless you are moving somewhere to move into a house. So for example, if you're thinking, I'm going to move to Spain in a couple of years, but you want to get the golden visa now, then commercial property will attract somewhere in the region of 40 or 50,000 less tax on the purchase than a residential purchase. And as long as it's managed for you, which is what we would do, for example, then you don't have any worry with the asset itself. And then obviously when you come to move over and you're going to live in a property, you could sell that asset. So commercial property tends to be the way people prefer when they get the costings. But again, we'll come on to that. But we do everything. So again, as you can see on these slides, and I won't read it out to you, that does also include things such as opening a Spanish bank account, getting your tax numbers in Spain. We can do all that remotely whilst you're in your country as well. So we assist with everything, getting your cards, everything, filing your tax returns, all that sort of thing. So essentially you can have an asset and forget about it. So that is the idea of what we do at Holborn Pass. It's just to make the whole process as simple and as easy as possible for somebody getting the Spanish Golden Visa. So the estimated timelines for getting a golden visa. So this is whether you decide to use us or you're using somewhere else. This would generally be the timeline. Looks a bit complicated here, but just to give you an idea. When you decide to go ahead and buy a property, so whether that's commercial, residential, or whatever it would be, from signing paperwork and saying, okay, I want to go ahead, we found a property, for example, we found one for the client, you then need to go through the process of getting an NIE number for a client, opening a bank account for a client. You need to go through the whole sales process. We need to register the property, etc., etc. If you can see my cursor there, it's normally around month 3. So around month 3 here, property registry certificate is when the actual, you've bought that asset. So you've started the process, you've got your NIE, which is your tax number, you've got your bank account, we've done all that for you. You are looking in the region of 3 months. It could be a little bit quicker, could be a little bit longer, depending on how long people take to get things back. But roughly speaking, that is 2 to 3 months. Now, once you've got the asset, so the asset that you need to get the golden visa, which I'll come on to, but with Spain it's for 500,000. There are cheaper options, but I'll come on to that. But once you have that asset, you can then apply for the golden visa through the consulate, which we do on behalf of our clients. So The good news with Spain, a lot more than Portugal, is once you've actually got the asset, to apply to the consulates, you will get a response within 21 days. And if they don't respond within 21 days, it's deemed that you've been given the golden visa. So within 3 to 4 months, you will have the golden visa, which is basically stamped on your passport to say that you can work, study, live, come into Spain, etc., etc. And it's valid for 1 year in your passport. So after that, what we then do is we then have to submit on your behalf a residence permit application. We have to do biometrics and the various other parts of it, which normally take another 2 to 3 months. It's all part of what we do for our clients. And that would then give you the physical card. So after month 6 to 7, you will actually have your residency. I haven't got mine here actually, but a residency card with your photo on, and that'll be done. So month 3 to 4, you have all the benefits. By month 7, you have the physical card. And as I say, Spain is really difficult. You need to use experts to sort of guide you through this process, because if you do it yourself, it can take a lot longer. You need to know what to submit. Things need to be translated, apostilled. You need to get all sorts of stuff done. We guide you through the whole process of doing that. But that's roughly how long it will take. So just talking a little bit about what citizenship and residency by investment means. This is whether it's Spain or anywhere else in the world. But the idea is that an investor will contribute to a foreign country by investing into real estate, by giving a donation. It tends to be less popular because it's not an investment for somebody, but investing within a business, certain types of businesses, into funds and into government bonds. And by investing a certain amount of money into that economy, you would then be given the rights of residency for that particular country. Okay, I'll come on to Spain specifically and how that works shortly. As I say, real estate has been removed as an option for places like Portugal and some other places. And the Golden Visa program generally is being looked at because it's deemed by a lot of governments, this is the way Portugal looked at it with the real estate, that by getting the investment coming in, it drives up house prices. So it has a negative effect on the economy because you get lots of foreign investors coming in, driving up house prices. So Portugal removed real estate as an option, and we fully expect that Spain will do the same. So this is how it is now, and it might be in the next year or the next 2 years, but there's already been opposition to the government. The government in Spain has recently changed. So all eyes have kind of been off the golden visa, if you like. But now that people are looking at the golden visa again, and no doubt the government will look at this as a way of, I suppose, for the people to sort of say that we're trying to do something to help with rising house prices, etc., etc. So these are the options you have at the moment, but that may change. So the idea is then to get residency by making this investment. You get your residency permit, and that gives you the right to live and to work in that country. So if it's Spain, you can live, you can work, you can retire in this country. You can come and go as you please, by the way, to Spain. You don't have to stay here for more than 6 months. You don't have to be a tax resident. You have in fact, you don't have to spend any time at all in Spain once you've got your golden visa. As long as you hold that asset and you've got the golden visa card, you can come and go as you like, and you don't actually have to spend any time in Spain whatsoever anyway, which makes Spain quite unique. What you can do with a residency card, such as a golden visa, whether it's Spain or elsewhere, not all places allow you to do this, but you can, after a period of time, turn the residency into a citizenship. Now, citizenship basically means that you become a passport holder, which gives you a few more rights. So, for example, if you became a passport holder in Spain, not only would you have the right to come and go freely to Spain, but you'd also have the right to stay more than 90 days in any EU country. It gives you a few more rights throughout the EU. So there are extra benefits by becoming a citizen. Most EU programs will start out as being residency, and they can potentially be changed into citizenship once you've spent a certain amount of time there, which is how Spain works, it's how Portugal works. There are some programs which don't allow you to change it into citizenship, but Spain does, and I'll come into how that works. Okay. Now, these are the different programs we do. It's a really busy slide, so don't worry if you can't read stuff, but it's just to give you an idea. As I say, we do all different citizens. So citizenship programs on the left-hand side. So these tend to be outside of the EU. So you've got Antigua, St. Lucia, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts, Vanuatu, Malta, and Turkey. So these are countries you can become a citizen. You can become a passport holder after normally between sort of 4 months and a year, depending on the country. You can become a passport holder of these countries. But that doesn't really give you any help in people looking to move to the EU. So on the right-hand side, as you can see there, these are residency programs where you've got Portugal, Greece, you've got the USA in there as well, Spain, the UAE.
Now, particularly, we're looking at Spain here, okay, and you can compare it if you like to Portugal, but it's yeah, it's slightly different. We'll come on to that. So with Spain, you can actually turn your residency, your golden visa, into a passport in Spain in 10 years. So if you've actually had you've been in Spain for 10 years, you don't have to have lived in Spain. Only the last 5 years, you have to be more than 6 months in Spain for 5 years. If you've done that and you've got 10 years that you've had this golden visa for, you can change it into a passport. It's 10 years, but, and this is really, really important, if you are if the main applicant applying is from an ex-Spanish colony, so there's a big list of these, and I'll come on to them, but let's say could be Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, there's a lot of them, and I'll come on, Venezuela. If the main applicant is from that country, then actually you can get your passport within as little as 2 years. And then you can get your spouse to get the passport within 3 years because they're then married to you and you're a passport holder. So spouse within 3 years, you within 2 years, you can have a passport as long as the main applicant is from an ex-Spanish colony. And that means that when you apply, that we show your passport that is from that country. So 10 years for, I suppose, the majority of people, but only 2 to 3 years can you get a passport if you have an ex-Spanish colony passport. Portugal's 5 years, and that always made Portugal very popular. So you could change within a passport into 5 years. But that, obviously, the Spanish ex-colony thing didn't apply to Portugal. Now, the minimum amount you need to apply, now, I don't know if you can see it for Portugal, this is incorrect, it's not been updated now. It's 500,000 for Portugal now, not 280,000. It used to be 280,000. But now in Portugal, you need a minimum of 500,000. That can't be into property. It's got to be into government bonds. It's got to be into investment funds, into a business, various different options you have. Now with Spain, it's the same. It's 500,000, but you can invest into property. Okay, so 500,000 into property. Now, we as a company, because of the way Portugal's changed, and because now people are looking very much towards Spain, we've actually developed a product where you can invest for as little as 350,000. And the way we do that, which I'll come on to, is by having your rental yield for a property paid up front. So you invest 350,000, you're paid rental yield up front to give you 500,000, and that qualifies you for the golden visa. So this is what's becoming really popular with people that we're talking to, because obviously 350,000 is quite a big difference from 500,000. And we do it, and I'll come on to how that works and the pros and the cons a little bit later. But just to make you aware, although the minimum for Spain is 500, we can do it for as little as 350,000. And there's two options of ways we can do that, which I will come on to. There's various other things on here, but just things to note, particularly with Spain, you can tag on your family. So if it's say a husband and wife, then you can tag on your children if they're under 21. Even if they're older than 21, you can still potentially tag them on if they're at university and things such as that. So they can all come under that one application. So the 500,000 or 350,000 is for a couple and your children. And potentially, you can actually, as it mentions there, put your grandparents on there as well, if they are considered to be dependent. Okay, so you can put your grandparents on there, depending on their age as well. So they've got to be aged over 65, but you can do that. So aged over 65 grandparents. You could have an application with 5 or 6 people on, which is what we've been doing for a lot of people, with only one investment. And every person will get a golden visa within that application. Every person would have the right to live, to work, to move around visa free and all that sort of thing. So hopefully that sort of helps a little bit on that screen. Let me just move on to the next slide. So yeah, but these are the different programs we do. As I say, I'm concentrating here very much on Spain. So if we go a little bit into why Spain, and it's a bit silly going through this because obviously you're here because there is an interest in Spain. But just to give you some facts about Spain, why Spain? Well, Spain is actually considered to be the first country worldwide for quality of life. So these on various surveys, Spain normally comes up for quality of life. And I can say that by living here, I've lived here for the last 6 years. It's such a sort of nice place to live in terms of quality of life. It's a slower paced life than the UK, where I'm from. Obviously, you get lovely weather. You've got a great position here as well that you can drive to. I drive to our Portugal office it takes me around 3.5 hours. So an office here we've got down in Malaga. You drive to Seville across the border. It's really easy, and you could be in the Portuguese office in around 3.5, 4 hours. So it's really nice. It's a great position here in Spain as well. It's great weather. Not today, by the way. It's raining, but normally is. It's the second most visited country by international tourists. Probably no surprise that. I think most people you know has visited Spain. I think a lot of it comes down to the weather, but it's just a lovely, lovely country to live in. So a very visited country. The fourth biggest economy in the EU and the 14th in the world as well. So the Spanish economy is really growing as well. And you notice that by being here, there are lots of job opportunities now, whereas maybe sort of going back a little more bit, there wasn't so many because of obviously the recession and various other aspects. But it's really, really sort of, you can really sort of see it when you live here. There's a lot more industry, a lot more jobs going, just sort of more of a buzzy environment, basically. Voted the fifth best country in the world to live in. That's out of, all over the world, not just in Europe. Sixth best retirement destination that is voted for in the 2023 annual global retirement index. It makes a lot of sense. My wife's parents live over here. The healthcare here is really good as well. So the warm weather tends to help a lot of people. And obviously the retirement here is really good. And it's voted as, seventh best public healthcare system, which we've had to use here many times. And it's been really, really good. Obviously, the language barrier is the only problem, but as part of the Golden Visa program, which we help you get, is you get your own health insurance, which actually is very cheap here in Spain compared to countries like America and that sort of thing. But we can do all that as well in terms of the quotes, letting you know what it would cost, that sort of thing. So that's a little bit about why Spain. In terms of the Spanish Golden Visa, but the Spanish Golden Visa started back in 2013. And as I mentioned before, the idea with this was to really raise a lot of money for the Spanish economy. And all these different countries have done the same thing, bring lots of money into the country, do that by basically getting people with wealth to come into that country, which Spain did. And it started theirs in 2013. And since then, it says over 9,000. I think we're well over that now because that's a bit of an old figure. So I think we're around 15,000 or more Golden Visa applications have been approved. And it's raised over 3.5 billion in terms of foreign direct investment. As I mentioned before, there's certainly an issue here in Spain with regards to house prices going up. Even when the interest rates went up, the house prices continue to go up, and it went against really what the trend should be. And again, I think that's going to make more focus on the Gold Visa program here in Spain. So be really mindful of that, because if it's something you're looking to do, where again, whether it's using us or whether it's doing it yourself, be mindful because it will be withdrawn. There's no doubt. I mean, I don't know the whole Golden Visa program. Certainly the Golden Visa and property will be, and it might be later this year, it might be next year, but it will be withdrawn. And one of the advantages in Spain, which I will come on to, which actually is the next point there, sorry, it says no time needed to spend in Spain. So once if, for example, someone's thinking, well, I'm going to move over in 2 or 3 years' time, but I definitely want to invest in property and I want to know I can do it now, there's nothing to stop you actually getting the asset now, because you don't, to keep a Golden Visa, need to spend any time at all in Spain. There's no minimum stay requirements, which makes Spain very unique. So you could have your holding asset, you could have your card, and you don't need to spend any time in Spain. There's only one time you need to come over, and that's as part of the process to do your biometrics, your fingerprints, that sort of thing. And anybody can apply, so any non-EU citizens can apply as long as you've got no criminal record. And I've had a few people ask me about this. So the criminal record is not misdemeanors, not driving offences, but obviously it's things that are more serious. And I can see various things on the internet where people have questioned this and say, well, it's only no criminal record in the last 5 years. It's not. It's no criminal record that shows up. As part of the process, we get you to get a criminal record check. So if it's in America, it's an FBI check or wherever you may be from. And obviously, as long as it doesn't show any serious offences, then there's not an issue at all. But even if it's something from maybe 7 or 8 years ago and it's more serious, then be mindful of that. But again, we can help you assess that. And as I say, you can include your spouse, your children, and your grandparents on this. You can put as many people on your application as you want. Only one investment needed, which is the main applicant that we would select. And again, if you're ex-Spanish colony, we would use the person with the ex-Spanish colony passport, because that's going to be in your interest in terms of changing it into citizenship. So the benefits of the Golden Visa program in Spain. So it gives you, quite simply, the right, as I have here, to live and work in Spain. So I can come and go as I please. I don't get my passport stamped when I go back to the UK. I can move into Portugal or to France. And you have the right to live and work, and you can travel freely amongst all the 26 Schengen countries as well. So you can just, drive across the borders. It's very, 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 very simple, and it's visa free. You don't need to have a visa to do that once you've got the Golden Visa card. You can actually establish a business in the other Schengen areas as well. There's 5-year taxes there, but you have to be very careful with tax, because there are, we as part of what we do for people, we help with the tax associated with the property they're buying. But obviously, if it's specific tax advice, get some tax advice if you're still trying to decide what country is right for you. Portugal used to have many tax benefits, but they've been withdrawn now with NHR being taken away. Spain still does have potential tax exemptions, but obviously it really depends on someone's individual circumstance. But there are benefits in the Spanish tax system, and you get access to world-class healthcare, and you also get access to the pension here in Spain. So even if you never convert it to citizenship and you never become a passport holder, the benefits you get as a Spanish resident are still very, very, very good. So be mindful of that as well. And as I say, lovely place to live in. So I did a slide here just to give you some, I probably covered a lot of this, but just to give you some myths and facts about the Spanish Golden Visa program, and just to maybe break any information you may have heard and to tell you what is right and what's not. So the first one is you have to spend in any time in Spain to maintain your residency. No, there's no minimum stay requirements in Spain. So once you have your Golden Visa, you can come and go as you please. Even if you're not planning to live here for another 5 years, you could do, for example, the commercial property option, which is cheaper, have it managed for you, leave it alone, and you have that Golden Visa. And when you come over here, you can sell that asset and then obviously buy wherever you want to live. But there's no time needed to spend in Spain to keep your Golden Visa. People also often ask about the Golden Visa. I'll say at this point, once you've got a Golden Visa, you have to keep hold of that asset. So you renew it every 5 years and you keep hold of the asset and it keep being renewed. Even if they withdraw property as an option in Spain, they will still honor anybody that already has that. So that won't be taken away from you once you're in the system. But once you actually have your Golden Visa, if you stay more than 6 months a year for 5 years, so i.e. you are living as a tax resident in Spain for 5 years, you can change that Golden Visa to permanent residency. That way you don't actually need to hold the asset anymore. You can get rid of it because you are a resident, a permanent resident, but you would then need to live in the country. Obviously, you need to be living in the country to have that. So the idea of the Golden Visa gives you more flexibility, but for someone that might not want the asset anymore, you can change it to permanent residency. Next one, only residential real estate applies. No, commercial, residential, parking spots, anything that's real estate will qualify, and it has to total 500,000. As I say, we concentrate on commercial. I keep saying this, and I'll come on to it in a later slide, only because if you're not going to live in this property when you first, and you're buying it as investment, and you don't know where you want to live when you come over here, it's so much cheaper to do commercial than residential. So much cheaper when you look at the quotes on it. So again, I'll come on to that in a slightly later slide. Next one, you need to buy a property, one property of at least 500,000. No, you can have as many properties as you like, as long as they total 500,000. So it doesn't have to be one. If you already own a property in Spain, you could potentially use that towards the 500,000. If you do have a property in Spain, if that applies to any of you, just so you know, it has to have been bought since September the 29th, 2013, for it to count. So if it's a really old property, it won't count. It has to have been since September 2013, which was when the Golden Visa program started. And it will always be on what the value was when you bought it, not what the value is now, because it may have increased in value, but it will be what it was when you bought. But you can have as many properties as long as they total 500,000. Next one, there are limitations in where you can invest. No, you can invest in anywhere, so including the Balearic and the Canary Islands. We tend to look at investments in Barcelona and Madrid because, as you can imagine, they are by far the sort of safest and best investments. A bit like in England when you look at London or whatever country you're from. If you look at the main capitals, the main cities, that's where you know there's going to be really good growth, really good rental yield as well. The process is long and vague. Not at all. The actual Spain process is incredibly fast. So Portugal would take about 18 to 20 months to start the process and get your Golden Visa. Spain, you're looking at it within 6 months, and you could actually get it. It says there, it's basically they will issue it within 21 days of submission, but you first of all need to have the asset, so that can take 3 months. After that, you've then got 21 days, you've got your stamp, your Golden Visa, and then you've got the rights to do everything that you need to do. So very quick process. The Spanish program is expensive, not at all. The additional costs are minimal. So once you've actually got that holding asset, to do your TIE, for example, to get your tax number, it's around 70 euros. To renew it, it's very, very cheap. So again, compared to other countries, you're not going to be landed with any heavy bills. Spain's very, very cheap, very easy to renew and very sort of cost effective. And you have to live in Spain for 10 years to qualify for citizenship. As I mentioned before, no, you can have citizenship, so you can become a passport holder in as little as 2 years if you hold an ex-Spanish colony passport, which I will come on to what countries they are. So 10 years for a lot of people, but some people don't even want to do the citizenship. It doesn't give you necessarily more benefits. You can just continue being a golden visa holder and being a resident. So the Spanish passport is if you convert it to the citizenship after 10 years. Now, as I said, after 10 years, if you're not ex-Spanish colony. If you are ex-Spanish colony, it's 2 years. And then obviously your spouses can get their passports on the back of that. And the countries that are ex-Spanish colony, so I'll read them out, are Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Equatorial Guinea, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, the Philippines, Uruguay, and Venezuela. And in addition, there's Andorra and Portugal. But if you're Andorra and Portugal, you would need to have the Spanish passport anyway. So there's a lot of countries on there. So maybe, you know, again, if that affects you, really is a good option if you do have a main passport holder from one of those countries. The requirements to change your residency into citizenship is you have to do a basic language level test. So it really isn't that complicated. Shouldn't be, certainly if you've been living over here. A cultural exam as well. So you have to just make sure you understand, which is fair enough. It's like most places. And if you are an ex-Spanish colony, you would have to live over 6 months a year for the 2 years to get to change it to a passport. So you'd have to effectively be a tax resident. So don't get that muddled up. A resident and a tax resident are different things. If you're not more than 6 months a year in Spain, you're not a tax resident in Spain. You could be a resident, but not a tax resident. So you could save you money on tax. You could come and go as you please, but as long as you don't stay here more than 6 months, you're not a tax resident. But if you want to change it to a passport, it's 2 years of over 6 months ex-Spanish colony. And if you are not an ex-Spanish colony, you have to do 5 years. So then the last 5 years, you have to spend more than 6 months a year in Spain, and then you can convert it to citizenship. And we can do all that for you. We do the whole process for you just to make you aware of it. And it says there it's the 3rd best passport in the world. I correct that. This year it's actually been changed to the 2nd best passport. The Spanish passport, in terms of what it gives you, is now ranked number 2 in the world, which is actually ahead of Portugal, which I believe is number 4. So there you go. And you can travel to 190 countries visa-free with the Spanish passport. So it's a really strong passport to have. But as I say, you might not want to change it. It might not be relevant to change it to citizenship, but the option's there. But obviously, once you've got that passport, you can then live and work anywhere in the EU, not just Spain. You can literally live and work anywhere, and you're part of the EU community. So food for thought if you're considering the passport option. So these are the options in terms of what you can do. So real estate, the minimum investment is 500,000, as I've said. We can do it for 350,000 by structuring it in a certain way. But essentially, the deeds for the property that you get must say 500,000 or total 500,000. The other ways you can do it is you can do it by investing in equity in a business, less popular because it has to be €1 million to do that. You can put money in a bank or deposit account or investment fund, but again, it has to be $1 million, which is obviously less appealing. And probably the least appealing for people is government bonds, where it's 2 million. So it's a lot of money if you're going to invest within a government bond. So you can see why real estate is popular. And you can see also why, I suppose, a lot of people are looking to do it now, because they want to look at real estate now before it's potentially removed, because the other options seem quite high. Again, we don't know how it may change, but just sort of be mindful of that. So I want to talk now through what we do and ways of doing this. So this is, it seems like a complicated slide. It's not. There is basically 3 parts to this. Okay, so I just want to look at really generally commercial versus residential as an option in Spain to get your golden visa. So on the left hand here, you've got a commercial asset. So this is a traditional asset, in commercial asset worth 500,000. The next column along, you've got an asset which we do, which is called a turnkey solution. So it's 350,000 asset, okay? Again, similar, still commercial, but it's a lower amount for someone to pay. And then you've got a residential option here, okay? We've also introduced a new scheme, which I'll probably mention in the next slide, because we've literally only came out 2 days ago, which is going to be really popular, but I'll explain how that works in the next slide. I don't want to confuse things here. So the commercial asset. So I just want to, I suppose, start by saying, if you are moving over to Spain, to think, I'm going to move to Spain, I want to live in Seville, I've got 500,000, I found the property I want to live in, then you don't need help. You know, you might need someone to help you do the paperwork, but you can move to that property and you qualify for the golden visa. But in reality,
like, for example, when I came over here, you don't really know where you're going to want to settle. So you don't want to go and buy somewhere and pay quite high taxes in Spain for buying somewhere to only then move in a year or two's time. It doesn't make financial sense. And this is what, again, why commercial is a good option, which I'll come on to. But anyway, advantages, a commercial asset. So a commercial asset traditionally, as part of the buying process, has transfer taxes between 1.5% and 2.5%. And that's for Madrid and Barcelona. Barcelona is slightly cheaper. So that's why but either one is very cheap. In comparison, the transfer taxes on a residential property, you can see put a 0.1 there, is around 8 to 11.5%. So on a residential property, you're going to be paying around 40,000 euros more for an asset worth 500,000 straight away. It's going to cost you 40,000 more. So unless you know you're going to be there, you've got to be really careful of buying somewhere and then selling it and getting somewhere else because you're already 40,000 out of pocket. The other advantages of commercial assets, they have long-term leases and the tenants will cover most of the expenses, okay? So unlike a residential, it's actually the landlord that has to cover that. The minimum outlay is 500,000. If you do a traditional commercial asset, which again we can help with, look at what are the best options, manage it for you. And yet your average rental yield is normally between 4 and 6%. Net is probably around 4%, 4 to 5% net once you take out all the costs, taxes, that kind of sort of thing. And you can do the full service package there, so you can actually have it fully managed for you, so tenanted, everything's done for you, including, you know, to help with the tax returns, all that sort of thing. The middle option is the 350,000 option. So the idea of this is that it helps people do it for a lower amount of money. So you still need 500,000, but the way we do it is that anybody investing puts in 350,000 and immediately is paid 150,000 rental income up front, which is effectively 3% per year for 10 years. So it's kind of like a 10-year scheme, if you like, but you're paid that 3% up front, so you're getting 150,000. And obviously that's a little bit less than what you'd normally get, but this is going to be fully managed for you. Now, what actually happens on the 350,000 option, it's all taxes are paid on your behalf. So there's nothing that you need to pay. It's rented, even if it's vacant and then there's no one in the property, it's all done for you. It's rented for you. You don't do any of the tax returns, any of the maintenance, nothing. It's fully managed, okay, for that 10 years. And at the end of the 10 years, which I'll come on to in the next slide, I don't want to go too much on it, but at the end of the 10 years, you can either sell it at open market. So bear in mind, it was worth 500,000 when you bought it because you had the 150,000 up front. You can sell it on the open market. You'd think in 10 years, commercial property in Madrid or Barcelona would certainly be worth way more than 500,000. But even if not, there's a guaranteed buyback written into the contract of 350,000. So after 10 years, you're guaranteed to get 350,000 back if you don't sell it to the open market. So it's a backup option if there was some crash. So it's a great way of just giving you a bit of reassurance. And you have that full management included for 10 years. Now, we can do residential as well, and that's basically a second home, but there's a lot more taxes that will attract. If it's a second home, you've got potentially capital gains tax to be aware of. Okay, so again, be mindful of that. You've also got that transfer tax that's going to be around 8 to 11.5%. So it's going to be about an extra 40 or 50,000. Your average rental yield on a residential property is around 2 to 3% compared to 4 to 5, 4 to 6% on commercial. So if you're going to put your investment hat on, then certainly residential is not as attractive unless you're going to be living there. And what you've got to do really, a lot of this, as I say, when you move somewhere, is think about where are you going to want to live, because it might not be where you first moved to. And certainly if you're not thinking of moving here for a few years, but you want to get the golden visa now, then commercial asset is perfect. And also, once you're in that position where you know where you want to live, well, you sell the commercial asset and you then move to, you know, wherever it is. So you've got to take away the decision. It's not an emotional decision here. It's what would be best for you. Now, I will come on to the actually, I'll do it on the next slide. So this is the 350,000 option we do. And I keep sort of showing this because there's been so much interest in it because of the way it's structured. But effectively, the steps are, it's a 500 investment. The deeds to your property, commercial property, will be for 500,000. But initially you pay 350,000. Now there are associated costs like legal fees, the initial taxes. So your total probably going to be around 370,000 all in, including the application for the visa, opening accounts, everything. Going to be something around that scale. You're paid 150,000 straight away, which is the equivalent of 3% rental yield up front for the 10 years. And then we do the whole process and get you to go on visa and manage it for you. And examples, we would show you a list of what's available at the time. You choose which one you'd want. We then manage it for you. At the end of the 10 years, you can sell it open market. You can have the 350,000, or you can keep the investment as an income. And the sort of investments you're looking at are things such as catering, retail, office facilities. We do all the due diligence. We go and find these properties that are out there. So that's the idea of the 350,000 option. Also, so going back to what you can do at the end of year 10, as I say, you can exercise the 350,000 guaranteed buyback. So you know categorically you will not lose any money. The 350,000 you put in, you will get back in 10 years. But obviously that doesn't represent a great investment, because people actually want to see a return on it. And this is where you're probably going to sell it to the open market at the end of 10 years, because a property in Madrid or Barcelona that was valued at 500,000 now is likely to be valued at far more than that in 10 years' time. So it's a really good investment for that point of view, but you've got the backup option. And option 3 is you just maintain it yourself and you just keep the rental income coming in, and you have it as your own asset and your own investment. So again, that could be good, actually, particularly Spain and Barcelona, because there's some really upcoming areas. And if you get the good investments in these areas, it could be really just be a good income in retirement. If you want to opt out before year 10, then you can get the guaranteed buyback, but it's less, because obviously you've had that 150,000 up front. So obviously we've done a calculation there that year 5, you're guaranteed to get 175,000 back. 210,000 back after year 6, year 7, 245,000, year 8, 285,000, etc. Until year 10, you've got the guaranteed at 350. So this one's not necessarily good for people who want an early exit. The idea of this is best if used as part of a 10-year plan. However, there is the option to get out early. And the idea of the 10 years was to fit in with becoming a citizen. If you can think about it, the citizenship, it ties in nicely with the 10 years. Now, I think the next slide, so I'll come on to the 500,000 next. I just wanted to briefly mention here, we've introduced a new scheme that literally came out 2 days ago. And if anyone's interested in this, and it really will be popular, and I'll explain it as best I can in a very short space of time now, but I've had a presentation sent to me and I will be going through it I'll probably do a separate presentation for this. And obviously I can speak to people on an individual basis. But instead of the 350,000 option, for people that want something even more secure, we've structured essentially a hotel option. And we've done this with Portugal before, but it's been more difficult to do it with Spain. But the idea of this is that someone will invest similar to this. 350,000 is the investment amount. It's going to be slightly more than that because you've got to pay the taxes and everything involved, but it's going to be around 350,000 you invest. And that is invested into, they're called Soho Boutique Hotels. They've got 28 hotels throughout Spain. They're a very well-known hotel chain here in Spain. And they're building a new hotel called the San Blas in Madrid. And they raise money through essentially people investing into them. Now, we've actually managed to structure a way of doing this where people can invest 350,000 into the hotel. They are immediately given the 150,000 rental income up front. That's paid. And that gives you your 500,000. And that will have a gap because there's no open market option at the end of 10 years. You can't sell it to the open market. The hotel want to buy it back off you because it's their hotel. So they've structured it in a way that in 10 years, they guarantee to buy it back off you for 500,000. So you know at the outset exactly what you're going to get. It's a 10-year investment. You're going to invest the 350,000. You're going to get the 500,000 back. So you know your return is going to be. There's no open market selling. There's no early buybacks. There's nothing. It's a very simple scheme. But it's very good if you think about it, because you know you're going to get a return of 3% per year. You know you're guaranteed to get that. And it doesn't matter what happens with house prices, you're completely safe. And any investment is secured on the hotels of the hotel chain, of the 28 hotels, not just a new one. So even if, barring some disaster, that any money is invested is secured onto their whole 28 hotels. So it's a very good option. Again, it's very new this week. We've got 60 investors available to raise the amount that they need. So we're gonna sort of roll this out as a company shortly. But again, if anyone's interested in this, I'm more than happy to talk them through. So that's a hotel option, which, as I say, we don't have any slides on that. And the final one, and the most flexible one, is a traditional 500,000 investment. So this is example of one we did called Bipolar. It was actually 600,000 this for a client. This was in Madrid. 600,000 investment, and actually the yield is 3,050 euros per month, fully managed. It's a licensed property, a licensed restaurant, a really nice part of Madrid as well. But we can help source that,
do everything for you if you go down that route. And that's the most flexible way, because obviously the 350,000 option is great, but you have got that slight restriction on getting out, and the 10-year option or getting out early, and same with a hotel. But the 500,000 is your traditional commercial investment where you can get a very good return, have it managed for you. And then at the point that you think, okay, I now know where I want to live, then you sell the asset, you get your 500,000 and use that to then buy where you want to live. But you've saved all that money initially in terms of the transfer taxes. So that's the kind of three main options that we have. Now, I've got lots of questions here, which I will try to go through. I know some have come in and I've got a lot on here at the moment. I will say again, please scan the QR code if you want to book in. I'll make a note of the telephone number while you do this, and my email. I know if you go onto my Calendly link, which is the QR code, you might see that there's not so much available, but I can open up my diary if people want sort of later appointments, because I do appreciate the time difference is very sort of difficult. So questions that come in, how do you get the visa? Well, we apply for the visa on your behalf. So we do all the pay, everything to get that visa for you. Taxes on rentals. So if you do the 350,000 option, if you notice that we pay 3% upfront for 10 years, that includes all taxes being paid for you within that investment. So in terms of taxes for the rental property on that, there is no taxes at all if you do the 350,000 option. It's, you're not going to get an income from it, but you've been paid it upfront and your taxes are paid and filed on your behalf. If you do the 500,000 on rental properties, it's going to depend whether you're resident or whether you're non-resident, and it could be 19% or it could be on a sliding scale of your rental income. So it's going to depend, and this would be any commercial option. It's going to depend where you're resident. We have an in-house tax team, if people use us in order to get the investments, that can actually help. That can help you with this as well. So we can get them onto a call and maybe sort of help you if it is something you're sort of seriously considering. I'm confused about what receiving a golden visa before citizenship actually gives you. Would I be able to stay in a Schengen country for more than 90 days of the golden visa, or only upon getting citizenship? So what it gives you is the right to stay in Spain for as long as you want. There's no 90 or 180 days in Spain. You can stay in Spain as long as you want. If you go to another EU country, then technically you've got 90 days and then you need to move yourself out of that country, and you can reset it by going back to Spain as opposed to America or wherever you're from. So you can use it as a base to move around Europe. Now, in reality, and I say this from living here, and I don't want to say anything untoward or incorrect, when, for example, you go across to Portugal, you drive into Portugal, no one stamps your passport. When I go to UK, no one stamps my passport. When I drive over to France, no one stamps my passport. To know how long you are in any one country is almost impossible for them to track. But the official rules would be the golden visa itself gives you the right to stay in Spain as long as you want, go back to your country, where you're initially from for as long as you want. But if you're going to go around other European countries, you can't stay more than 90 days, but you can reset by coming back to Spain. It's 90 within 180 days. So you come back to Spain for 90 days or whatever. So the citizenship, the passport would eliminate the 90 and 180 day rule in the other countries, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how that works. Right, I'll just go through the other questions I had coming in prior to the webinar. This is a difficult one. I'll try to find this out. Somebody's asked, if you build your own land, you build a house, what documents do you need to get the golden visa? I'd be very careful on this because I did a bit of research into this, and I know it's quite difficult to actually get an official valuation, if you like, if you do it that way, because it basically always goes on what's on the deeds of a property, and that's really what the value of the property is. But obviously, if you're going to buy land, it's how much you bought land for, you'll have that on the deeds to the land. But then once you've built the property, you're not necessarily going to have that on the deed. So I can see what I can find out, but that's a bit of a tricky one to answer. In order to obtain permanent residency, are you required to stay in Spain? If you want to be a permanent resident, i.e. you're not a golden visa holder, then yes, you would need to stay in Spain more than 6 months. But if you're just a golden visa holder, which gives you the rights of residency, so for example, you have that 500,000 property, then you don't need to stay in Spain at all. What rights do I get with a golden visa? So basically, in Spain, you can do anything as if you are a citizen other than vote. So you can live, you can work, You can retire, you can do everything. You have the card. And as I say, that card then gets you around Europe, visa free, but obviously in terms of Spain, it gives you all them benefits. How much is health insurance for non-residents? Difficult to say this. Obviously, it's very specific to the person and any conditions that you have. But, and I know this, we will give you some quotes if people are interested in using, excuse me, and they are a lot cheaper than countries like America. I know we've had people from America who have said they can't believe how much cheaper it is here in Europe. So we have a few companies that we can use that we know are very good for the golden visa, and we can obviously sort of look into that and give you them referrals if you like. Investment fund versus real property. Well, I know with Portugal now, you can do things such as property within a fund, which is a way of getting around not having property. But obviously, if you're in a fund with property, you then normally have fund charges, early exit fees, maybe initial upfront costs. So funds themselves can have all sorts of background hidden costs, whilst buying real physical property like you can here in Spain, actually you don't have that worry at all. You know, there's no background costs. What you pay is what you pay, and that's your property, and there's no other fees on top of that. Real estate investment options. Is 350,000 investment option valid? Is it possible to have a 5-year buyback option? Yeah, so I went through the buybacks. I can always send these out or do an individual appointment if you want, but you can have a buyback, but it's obviously less than the 350,000 if you do it, say, in year 5 to 10. Residential versus commercial property taxes. Well, I sort of went into that a little bit, and we've got to be very careful with tax advice. As I say, if it's something people are looking to do, we've got an in-house tax advisor. We do that for our existing clients and people that are using us, but we can get them on a call and go through your individual situation. Rights of spouses. So the spouses, as I say, would have the same rights. You can tag a spouse onto your application, and obviously they would have the same rights as you would have. So obviously, and then actually the same with your children, anything. So you're essentially getting your whole family over here with them benefits. There's a few more questions coming in here. I'm trying to keep on top of them. Okay, this is down the work as an architect to design and contractually build. At what point in the process can I apply for a golden visa? Right, this is something I'd have to find out. It's not something we deal with. You can imagine we deal with commercial property. So when it comes to building your own land, I did do, as I say, a bit of research into this, and there was a problem previously with this and actually building on land and actually being able to prove what the property was worth. I will see if I can find out any further information from our team, but as I say, it's not something we specifically deal with. If one has Portuguese NHR, what the rules are a tax on renting out Spanish property? Again, it's a tax question. If it's tax advice, we'd have to get somebody from the tax team onto this, or you'd have to speak to a tax advisor as well. You know, when it comes to choosing whether Spain is the right country, you need to look into your own tax situation. As I say, a tax advisor, to do tax advice, you have to be obviously regulated and qualified for a tax advisor. And although we have the information, we've got to be very careful what we tell people. So I can't really answer any of the tax questions. Are there any benefits because I prefer to be in Spain and my 10 years will be up? Well, if after 10 years you want to stay in Spain, as long as you hold the asset, you don't have to become citizens. You can just continue to be the golden visa holder. So you don't have to change it. The idea of becoming a citizen after 10 years is completely up to someone to do that. Right, I'm very conscious of time now because we're just literally getting into the end of the webinar. And I know there's so much information there as well. We will send a copy of the webinar out to everybody, so you can go back through this. Again, please feel free to email me, message me, book yourself in. I can do a prior, it's completely free, but I can talk you through your own situation if it's something you are looking to do. As I say, we can't provide tax advice. That's the only thing. But if somebody's using us, we've got in-house tax advisors that could potentially help. And we'll send you a copy, as I say, we'll keep you updated. And yeah, any questions, fire them through to me. But I hope you have found that useful. And as I say, thank you for joining us. I will carry on doing presentations for people as well. And hopefully keep you, abreast of what's happening or any changes that's happening. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will send that out to you in the next few days, and have a lovely evening wherever you are.